A new era at Michigan Central Station in Detroit and for Ford Motor Company. You'll hear from Bill Ford Jr. Plus, we'll debate the lasting effect on Corktown and the city. Also coming up, a major initiative to improve K-12 education in Michigan launched this week. Who is involved and what's different this time? Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson are here, and MiWeek starts right now.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Hi there and welcome to MiWeek. I'm Christy McDonald. Glad to have you with us. Two big stories this week. Ford touting its move to the train station in Corktown, and a new statewide coalition announced this week to change K-12 achievement in Michigan. We're starting in Detroit, where it was more party than press conference. Ford Motor Company announced its plans to move thousands of workers to Corktown, creating a campus for its mobility team and rehabbing the train station. It's being called a game changer for Detroit.
This station is a symbol, but Ford's investment in Corktown is anything but symbolic. We're making a big bet on our future.
In a move that's made headlines around the world, Ford Executive Chairman Bill Ford Jr. celebrated Ford's purchase of Michigan Central Station on Tuesday. The event, open to the public, but also packed with dignitaries from Governor Snyder to Detroit's Mayor Mike Duggan, inspired thoughts of what Ford's investment will mean and how it will change the city.
Isn't this a great day for Detroit? Who would have imagined that within 10 years, this site would be the center of 5,000 new employees coming back to the city and being the center of Ford's strategic direction on mobility? Isn't it remarkable?
To be reoccupied, to come alive again, to really be a beacon for the world again is something special.
The train station, long a symbol of the city's decay since the last train passed through in 1988, finally has a future. The last 6 months, Ford Motor Company negotiated the sale with the owners, the Maroon family, whose company also owns the Ambassador Bridge. Bill Ford Jr. says it wasn't until just a few months ago that the reality of the deal took shape. There was a lot to consider to make sure this was the right move.
Several questions we had to have answered before we did it. Number one, structurally, was it salvageable? We didn't know that. Fortunately, this was actually built very well. Number two, could we get a deal done, not only on the purchase, but did we understand the cost of renovation, and could we handle that? And then three, are there incentives available that would help us offset some of that? And so, we had to start working through this long tick list of things to make sure that this actually could work. And it wasn't only about, probably 2 months ago that I started to get really excited because we started getting affirmative answers to all those questions.
It's not just an emotional move for the Ford Motor Company. Investing in Corktown is in line with their mobility plans and research in the city. It's also looking to attract young talent from around the world who are looking to work in a unique urban environment.
If you think about the future of moving people, that has to be experimented in and done in cities. So this was a really interesting point in time where we had the resources to do this, our business needed it, and we could be part of something really cool in the city.
2,500 workers are expected at the train station by 2022. There are also plans for residential and retail inside the building. And the campus will extend to other properties in Corktown for at least 1.2 million square feet of workspace and an eventual worker total of 5,000. Bill Ford Jr. knows this investment will change Corktown and acknowledges concerns from residents about what it will mean for housing, for smaller businesses, and for families.
We're going to work with the community to ask them what they would like to see in here, what they wouldn't like to see in here. There's a lot of space in here, that could be really exciting. And we could have farmers markets, we could have restaurants and coffee shops and unique retail, we could have performing arts space. I mean, there's sort of no limit to the creativity. And we are going to take a little bit of time to sort all that through.
There will be tours of the train station open to the public this week. Let's bring in our MiWeek contributors, Nolan Finley, the editorial page editor of the Detroit News, and Stephen Henderson, host of Detroit Today on WDET Radio. Guys, I think when you see some of the renderings, it's just kind of like you have to take a breath. Yeah. I never thought I'd see something like this. No. I think in my lifetime when it came to the train station. So, Stephen, let me start with you.
This is the most difficult challenge. Yeah, right?
No, I remember as a kid going there to get on the train to go places, and it was never as nice then. This is in the 70s and 80s. It was never as nice as those pictures that we've seen there. I mean, it was dying then, and then of course they closed it in 1988, and it's just sat there haunting that neighborhood. I can't think symbolically of a bigger sort of sign, I guess, of Detroit going in a different direction than the idea that the train station will sort of be reborn and stop haunting that neighborhood.
Well, and be part of the future, really, and not just someone's not just building out and putting tenants in it, making it the centerpiece of future mobility.
One of the things about Ford doing this also is think of how Ford has been a little bit on the sidelines of the downtown and midtown recovery. They haven't dealt in the way some of the other companies has. This is a representation, I think, of them coming in to join GM and Blue Cross and Quicken and these other folks.
Ford came in early with the RenCen.
The RenCen.
And then
they sold it.
Got out. And you know, this train station's been the biggest challenge, I think, in terms of redevelopment and what are you going to do with this building. As Bill Ford mentioned, it's built really well, which made it really expensive to tear down, and probably why it's still standing after all these years. But it's going to be very expensive to rebuild too. And I had a column today, you know, asking the question, we already can't find workers in Detroit to do all of our projects. We've got this coming along, the Hudson site skyscraper, Monroe block, the district, on and on and on. The workforce shortage, the skilled trade shortage is going to become very critical in Detroit over the next couple of years as all this unfolds.
You know, I think that's a really good point, Nolan, and you did write in there talking about they're bringing workers in from Chicago, from Ohio, from different places to be able to work on a lot of these projects. I want to step back, though, and look at some of the headlines I think that we've seen from this, saying that this is a game changer for the city of Detroit. Is it truly?
Well, it depends on how we do it. It's like everything else. I mean, it is a game changer for that neighborhood. Let's start there. That site has held back Corktown, I think, in a really dramatic way over the last 30 years. Even as you've seen other people, you think of the businesses that have opened along Michigan Avenue between downtown and that site. I think they've all been a little hamstrung by the fact that that site was there. So activating that site really does push Corktown, I think, into sort of full forward gear.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think if you're living in Corktown, are you a little wary of this?
But I think that's the flip side of it is, can we do this in a way that benefits everybody, or do they have to be winners and losers? And we're not really great at answering that question right now in Detroit. I think you have to hope that the Fords approach this in a way that's respectful of the community and thinking about some of the challenges that they will introduce to that neighborhood by doing what they're doing. You have to hope that city government is playing its role and saying, yeah, this is great, we love this investment, but here's the ways we need to protect Detroiters and Detroiters' interests, not just in Corktown, but other places. This will be a test of how well.
But if you look at those aerial photos, there's a lot of empty space in that neighborhood.
The industrial space is empty, but the residential space.
The industrial space, there's a lot of room for building a lot of different things in that neighborhood. I think what you'll see here is, what you're starting to see is downtown becoming a contiguous unit. Over its years of abandonment, downtown was left with a lot of little pockets, New Center, Midtown, downtown proper, Corktown, the east side neighborhoods near downtown. They all were sort of isolated in little pockets. You're starting to see, you look at the jail project coming on, on the jail site. You're going to see the knitting together into a contiguous downtown, and we haven't had that in an awful long time.
Yeah, it's connecting the dots. What does that look? What does it look like now when Detroit you know, when they're selling Detroit, to say, look what Ford is doing here? What kind of other business could that spur, or other investment? If you're a company saying, whoa, if Ford's coming in and they're doing that with the train station, maybe I need to get in here.
Well, let's think about the businesses that would naturally attach themselves to what Ford is doing here. I mean, they're doing this to sort of create this mobility park. It will almost be, it sounds like maybe kind of a tech park in the middle of the city. There's a lot of other businesses they do business with that I think will be interested in being close by to that activity. And as Nolan said, there's a lot of industrial space down there that's dying or dead that is ripe for that kind of development. So there's no question that'll happen. But I think that commercial corridor also along Michigan Avenue between downtown and Corktown, and then going, you know, away from Corktown into Southwest, it lifts all of that, or the potential for all of that.
You've got to assume that Ford wants to connect its Dearborn campus to this campus, and you know that makes Michigan Avenue a very important strip. Sure. And you've seen the gradual build out of Michigan Avenue, and you know I think this benefits Southwest Detroit. You know, all the neighborhoods on that side of town that have been, you know, struggling over the years.
One of the other really important parts of what Ford has talked about, and they haven't talked a ton about this, but they did say this morning that they plan to keep tracks at the station. So the idea of reactivating it as a transit hub is still at least, you know, there, and it's the most logical place for us to have a train station. If you wanted high-speed rail to Dearborn and Ann Arbor,
well, they're going to have to make some connection to Dearborn.
You could move their workers back and forth all day long. They got a train station in Dearborn. You have a train station here. You could take people off the road and move them up and down Michigan Avenue all day long. It makes perfect sense. I think this is, you know, I quoted Matt Cullen from Rock Ventures in my column today saying, what this means most of all is it's a confirmation of the sustainability of Detroit's development. It's not all Illich and Gilbert and at the sort of mercy of the health of their businesses. It's getting to a broader base of investors and major big-time developers.
Well, we'll have to sit on a bar stool at 2 James and watch it all unfold.
Boy, they're in catbird seat, aren't they?
Just sitting on a little pot of gold.
I mean, when they started over there, nothing.
There's no one.
We'll have to leave it there. Turning now to another big announcement this week on education. A group of educators, business leaders, foundations, and unions from around the state are joining together to push a comprehensive plan to address K-12 reforms. It's called Launch Michigan, and together the over 30 groups represent about 700,000 people. Now, what makes this push different from other groups and studies? Let's take a look with some guests joining the table with us. Say hi to Jen Nelson. She's the Vice President of Public Policy and Economic Development at Business Leaders from Michigan. Jen, it's good to see you. We also saw you this spring at the Education Summit as well that we covered. Yes. So it's good to have you here at the table. And also with us here is Don Wetruba, the Executive Director of the Michigan Association of School Boards. Hi, Don, and welcome to MiWeek. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, I'm glad we're here to discuss this big initiative that was launched this week. And Jen, I'm going to give you first crack at this. Explain to us how this is different from any other coalition or 21st century education commission that we've seen before.
Sure. Thank you, Christy. This is a great opportunity, and this is happening outside of government, if you will. This is initially a business-led group that has come together. We were the initial conveners at Business Leaders for Michigan. And this is unique. This is historical for Michigan because it is business, labor, education, including charter, philanthropic, other community leaders all coming together to solve our education system's challenges. We haven't seen this before in Michigan. What makes it different is all the leaders are coming together, voluntarily coming together to do this because we see the challenges happening right now.
And Don, obviously, we've talked a lot about some of the scores and where Michigan ranks in terms of the rest of the country. And we have study after study, it feels like, that have been commissioned saying, well, we've got problems here and there. So what is this initiative going to do in terms of taking some of the numbers that we've seen before and then putting something together and saying, this is how we need to attack it?
Well, I think the intent, anyways, as we start working together is focus on 4 or 5 areas. Teacher preparation, teacher professional development, talking to those that are in the classroom and figuring out what they need to be successful and help our kids be successful. I think it's a much, as Jen said, more grassroots movement in that it's not government asking people to sit on a commission. And we want to try to figure out what the solutions are, whether they be on the policy side or the finance side, to say, how do we improve the scores that you mentioned? How do we improve the outcomes for kids? And I think when a single group or a couple groups work together on something, it doesn't have nearly the same impact or buy-in as when you get this group. And I think more importantly is we need to, as the conveners of bringing this all together, hold the legislature and the governors going forward accountable to, if we can come up with a solution, don't change it for a while. Let our educators stick with it and work for a number of years at it and show improvement, because we're on this kind of merry-go-round on and off where the next batch of legislators and the next governor comes in and this is their idea. And I think it's really put education at a disadvantage in Michigan, where other leading states, they have stuck with the plan and worked on it. And that, I think, more than anything, has made them successful.
The continuity, Nolan.
So Jen, you've opted against a comprehensive plan. You're taking some slices of the education problem. Which slices are you taking?
So we are looking, based on all the reports, and we've seen there's dozens of reports out there, and there's a lot of crossover and similarities in the reports. So what we are looking at initially are, as Don mentioned, teacher support and development, including elevating the profession. We need to retain educators, but we also need to attract educators. So teacher development and support, and even broader educator support, helping our principals be successful in the school buildings. Accountability. So accountability not just for teachers and students, we are measuring teachers and students, but holding the entire K-12 system accountable for improving our student outcomes. We're also looking at funding. We know funding is a component for the policies that we want to hopefully have implemented. We also need to look at, there's a basis of the School Finance Research Collaborative did research around what is the true cost to educate every student equitably. And that was one of the things that Business Leaders for Michigan came out in our report. So we're very happy to see what the School Finance Research Collaborative did is what does that look like? And it's research-based. However, we think we need to go a step further. We know that there are a lot of funding currently in the system. Where is that funding going? Is it getting to the classroom? Is it getting to the students to really improve those student outcomes? We also think there's an opportunity from a public awareness perspective to really engage the public, and so they understand truly what the crisis is with our education system, and not so parents become defensive, but so they want to engage in the solution. So we think those are a handful of things that we want to focus on initially within Launch Michigan.
Do you think that the way we govern schools here in Michigan is one of the things we need to revisit as well, both at the state level where we've got the governor, an independently elected school board and superintendent, but then also at the local level where school boards still have elections to decide who's going to be in charge? These are sort of antiquated models. Other states are trying some other stuff.
I mean, we are seeing other states, I mean, in large part, at least at the local level, and that's my membership, when you look across other states, we've had kind of and we've had it in Michigan, the mayoral appointed, the governor appointed sort of thing as it relates to boards, or no board, and it's a CEO model. There hasn't been great success in that, but I think what maybe a few other states have looked at, and I subscribe to the accountability model all the way up. We as Michigan, about half the states in the country require specific training for board members once they're elected to learn what their job is, to learn about school finance, to learn about labor negotiations. And in Michigan, that's not something we do. And so, we do have an electoral process, but just because Jen or I or one of you got elected to a board doesn't mean you understand what it means to be a governance body for a board. And I think we can do better to help the people that want to give their time. It's a tough job. But what can we do to make them better board members? So not maybe changing the governance model, but actually trying to improve those that sit on boards.
So you're looking for legislative solutions, or how does this plan become reality? I mean, how are you executing?
So this summer we're going to be really busy with the announcement yesterday. We had our first partnership meeting right after the announcement, which was a great partnership meeting to get some ideas on the table. We're going to be really busy this summer rolling up our sleeves to develop action plans. And I think it's going to be a combination of both legislative and maybe some administrative. So we will be evaluating that over the summer as we work on the action plans.
So let me go back to something, and Jen and Don, I want you to weigh on this, because what I'm listening to, when we're listening to governance, and you're listening to, are the solutions going to be legislative, or are they going to be administrative? Have we politicized education so much in this state that it feels like it is a right and a left issue? Jen, let me start with you.
I think education should be nonpartisan, and I think it has been politicized over the years. It should be a nonpartisan issue. At the end of the day, we're talking about kids. The kids need to be at the center of these discussions. And I think this group that came together, very diverse group of organizations coming together, and is an example of how this can be a nonpartisan, a bipartisan effort.
But is it also one of these things, Don, that you have to now push or put in front of who the candidates running for governor and saying, all right, is education going to be your top priority? And are you going to be able to go along with what this organization, Launch Michigan, because you have so many people now that are saying this is what the push is going to be, and this is what we want the next head of the state to follow through on?
That's exactly, we've spent a lot of time in pre-meetings going up to yesterday talking about that very issue, which is our hope is that because of the breadth of this coalition and its business and labor and management, that we will actually get the legislators and the policymakers, the governor, state board, whoever it is, that if we can agree amongst ourselves on the direction to take public education, even if it's in limited numbers of areas, that they're going to take the politics out of it and say it's the right way to go. I mean, we saw what I thought was a very good coalition of folks with the Detroit Coalition a couple of years ago, really run into the buzzsaw of politics in Lansing. And that was a pretty broad-based coalition. Now, this one's broader because it is statewide, but we want to overcome, because I lobbied for 18 years representing elected boards, and I would say that education in Michigan has been very politicized over that period of time.
Nolan.
Well, when you talk about how this goes forward in an election year, will you be presenting each of these candidates for governor and for state Senate, state House with your plan and saying, you know, we want you to sign off, and your support for this is contingent on the support of our organizations for your candidacies? Will this be a litmus test in the election?
I mean, I think timing-wise, our hope is to at least before the election or right at election time be able to have our recommendations and ideas put before every gubernatorial candidate and legislative candidate, and I think our plan is to contact them during the summer to let them know, hey, we are a coalition that we are looking for solutions, and we would ask you to kind of hold off on the next big idea that would come out of you as an elected official and wait for us to come out with some recommendations late in the fall and take a look at those before you.
And so far, Jen, I mean, they haven't, the gubernatorial candidates haven't been very large with their education plans. So it works to your benefit, perhaps.
Agree, and that is our message, as Don just mentioned. Keep an open mind to the candidates that are running. We are working throughout the summer to really put together what we think a plan. Again, it's coming to the 70%, because a lot of times we come to the table with the 10, 20, 30%, and maybe I'm a little optimistic here, but the 10, 20, 30% that we never will agree to. But if we can put that aside, keep that outside, and focus on the 70% that we can agree on, that's what we need to come to over the summer. And I think we can do that.
Stephen, you get the last question.
Yeah, any reaction from the existing sort of infrastructure of educational leadership so far to this? Does the governor, superintendent said anything about this effort and maybe their willingness to listen a little more to this than they have to efforts in the past?
Well, we're very pleased that the interim state superintendent, Sheila Alls, is part of our Launch Michigan effort, so we're very happy to have her part of that. And I think we will continue to work you know, as a coalition, and we are having people express interest, both from within and without, outside of government, in and outside of government, on our initiative, and we plan on to continue to expand.
Okay.
Don, I'm going to let you kind of get the last word on this. And what would you say to parents who have heard about we're going to do improvement here, we're really going to focus on education. What would you say to parents in Michigan about how Launch Michigan is going to make a different impact?
I think parents so often are very concerned about their child and how their child is doing. It's the same thing for me and my two kids that are in school. But I do think parents need to think more globally and look at not just what's happening with their kid in school, but how is every kid being served in a school. And I think this coalition and partnership is really looking and saying every kid, no matter where they live, should have access to an equitable education, whether it be financial resources or academic resources. And we want parents to engage and say that's important in Michigan and let their legislators know that's important so that all kids are getting what they need when they go to our schools. So when they're coming out of school, they get jobs, they want to stay in Michigan, they want to stay home and not move out of the state.
All right, we're going to be following all the work you're going to be doing throughout the summer. So make sure you update us, especially as we head back to school in the fall. Don Watruba, Jen Nelson, it's good to see you. Thanks, guys. That is going to do it for MiWeek. For more on our coverage of education in Michigan, just head to our website at MiWeek.org. Plus, we are on Facebook and Twitter at MiWeek. We'll be back here next Thursday. Hope you'll join us then. Take care.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.